Hello, Double GDP community. I am Nolan Myers, CEO of Double GDP, where we are building an end-to-end platform for new cities to attract and manage relationships with their residents. I'm giving the sprint update for January 22nd, and I want to take you through what we aimed to do last sprint, what happened, some highlights and lowlights, and we'll talk a little bit about what's coming next. So in the last sprint, we set out to do four things. We wanted to build out our recruiting infrastructure and start interviewing our first candidates. We're looking for head of engineering. We're looking for front-end engineers, back-end engineers, and UI designer as well. And we also wanted to make our progress on our first set of use cases around CRM. So that was, we focused first on building a 360-degree view of a customer so that everything for that one customer is in the same place. We wanted to onboard a finance team to free up our head of partnerships to focus on external relationships and start deploying the kiosk, our very first showroom, our use case for building an entry to a showroom, sort of like an envoy for Nkwashi. In terms of progress, what we did is we actually discovered early in the sprint that we had a problem where some of the guards at the gate were not actually using the application and focusing on paper logs. So what we discovered here, and I'll show you just a screenshot of some of our data here, we discovered that guards had been using paper logs all the way back into December. This really started from our customer success manager being on site, seeing that they had registered some paper logs and recognizing this as a problem. And when we discovered it, we found over 135 entries over the last month and a half that had been there. And we even discovered that one of the core reasons why guards had been reverting to paper was that they had one event on site. I think this really clarified for us that we, in order to be able to be effective, we need to be both faster, easier, and more secure than paper. If we were much more secure than the paper process that they had in place, but some of the things that we had in place made us less fast and less easy for residents. So that was a big learning in the course of this sprint, and we have adjusted to it. If I come back to the metrics here, I'll show you. We reacted very quickly and got back to a place where we now actually have, we had one of our biggest weeks last week in terms of the number of people that accessed the gate. One of the big learnings from this was that we discovered that there was a step in the process where when somebody showed up at the gate, it was sending a request to the head of security to either approve or deny that person into the gate. And we found that a lot of those requests were going unanswered. Now that could be either because the head of security was having a phone call with the guards and allowing somebody in, but not doing it through the app. It also could be that some SMS messages were being lost along the way. Either way, I think one of the big outcomes from this challenge this week is that we are going to remove that step of the process for the time being, making it even faster and easier for people to get in and register and still be more secure than paper. So I'm really excited to see how that plays out and how that changes things. The second thing was then in terms of recruiting. We got Greenhouse up and running, and for the very first week, got all of our jobs posted there. We had over 200 applicants in the last 2 weeks. If you just sort of look through the number of applicants that we've had here, last week we had 196 applicants, and this week 44. This is very exciting, and also was a little bit of a surprise. I did not think just by posting on Indeed and Glassdoor and LinkedIn that we would get quite this many applicants. But I have had now quite a number of conversations with some potential candidates for head of engineering, and I've just been thrilled with the quality of the applicants that we've been getting. So had some really interesting conversations, and looking forward to that, doing some more. In terms of the 360 view, in terms of what we were planning to build, Olivier will take you through some stuff that we have demoed, ready for demo there. But the focus there that we chose was to add notes and to-dos, so that when you're talking with a client, you have something that you remember about them. You can type that into a note. It'll save it as part of that. And then if you want, you can convert that into a to-do, and the sales associates at Inkwashi now can have one master list of the to-dos across all of their different customers. So that's a very first feature that we're very excited about and hoping to get deployed next week. And we did onboard a finance team. We made a lot of progress there, brought them up to speed, and Jay is now shifting most of his time to partnerships with a little bit of extra, we still probably a little bit of maintenance with the finance team. Highlights, lowlights, I would say the highlight is definitely the response around the rally of the Guard. I think that's both a highlight and lowlight. We did not get quite, the low light of that is that it derailed some of the stuff that we had been hoping to do with the showroom kiosk and deploy there. On the other hand, I think that we have a much better process that we are going to implement next sprint around having people show up at the gate and be able to get in. I think right now it's been a little bit cumbersome, and we're going to make that a very streamlined process in the next in the next sprint. Again, highlight, very happy with the head of engineering candidates that I've talked with. The biggest conversation right now is about whether we want a player coach role or a pure manager. The intention when we went to market with this role was to have a player coach. I've had a few good conversations with people who are just very experienced managers and want to give a little bit of thought to whether there's an opportunity to hire a slightly larger engineering team and if it would make sense to have a pure manager doing that. So that's something that I will be exploring in the next couple of weeks, both with some follow-up conversations and with some modeling to see if there are, what the budget implications would be of hiring a larger team, maybe having that team more offshore than in the US, and whether that changes some of the costs or the dynamics of how we would think about that. And then the other highlight was just notes and enrollments. I'm super thrilled with this. Olivier stepped up and just did a great job. I think most of the design has been there, a lot of design decisions, things that would have been done either by me or by our designer in the last couple of sprints. This time were just made by Olivier on his own. And the other great thing is that this has been a sprint where he's learned a lot about the back end where Mark was doing some of that. So Olivia is taking a much larger role and taking a higher role within the company. I'm just thrilled with the contribution he's made. So thank you very much to him. Focusing then on next sprint. We're excited. We have a lot of improvements that we've made in how we're enrolling clients, including a great conversation with the head of operations at Inkwashi, where we are going to we're going to get an email out to people who have already been at the gate. We're going to start calling them and telling them about the new, easier gate management process and getting them into the app. So hopefully this will be a big step forward in terms of the user enrollment. And we'll continue doing, we'll start doing some more proactive marketing and outreach for candidates that we're hiring for the roles that we're looking for to hire, as well as following up with many of the candidates that have applied. So if you are a candidate and have applied to WPP, thank you very much for your interest. And we hope to get back to you very shortly. We'll be clearing those queues in the next week just to respond to everybody who has applied. And then we'll also start exploring what the next CRM use cases are. So I think there's a lot of a refinement we can do around the notes and the to-dos. We'll start looking at scheduled to-dos, which was a request that we got from them, being able to set a to-do with a specific date. And we started thinking about mapping of plots a couple of weeks ago, and we'll sort of come back to some of that and see how we can build up mapping. If we have time, in addition to just solidifying some of the gains that we had at the gate in this process, well, in this week sprint, we will come back to trying to roll out the kiosk, depending on whether we have the time to do it. And then the final goal for next sprint is to think about planning for the conference. I will be going to Johannesburg in March. And I'm going to book that trip this week and start thinking about the presentation that we're going to put together. It's going to be really a great opportunity to connect with partners and tell the story of WGDP in a context of people that are already thinking about building new cities. So excited to see people there, and we'll look forward to refining my story in the next week. That's it for today. Thank you very much. Appreciate you tuning in, and look forward to connecting again in a couple of weeks.